Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Jaya Jaya Śrī Caitanya Jaya Nityananda. Jaya Dvaita Chandra Jaya Gaur Bhakta Vrinda. Jaya Jaya Śrī Caitanya Jaya Nityananda. Jaya Dvaita Chandra Jaya Gaur Bhakta Vrinda. Jaya Jaya Śrī Caitanya Jaya Nityananda. Jaya Dvaita Chandra Jaya Gaur Bhakta Vrinda. Today, on the auspicious occasion of Akshaya Tritiya, we'll be hearing the glories of Śrī Madhvendra Purī and several of the pastimes that take place on this eternal pastime day of Sri Krishna. There are many, many pastimes that take place on this auspicious day, eternally. So we're going to read what Śrī Caitanya Mahāprabhu considered the most important sloka. If anyone wants to go back to Godhead, they can chant this sloka at the time of their departure, just as Śrī Madhavendra Purī did. Again and again he chanted this. Ai dīna-dayārdra nātha hai, mathurā-nātha kadāvalokyase, hṛdayam tvad-aloka-kātaraṁ, dayita bhrāmyati kim karomy aham. Ai dīna-dayārdra nātha hai, mathurā-nātha kadāvalokyase, hṛdayam tvad-aloka-kātaraṁ, dayita bhrāmyati kim karomy aham. Ai dīna-dayārdra nātha hai, mathurā-nātha kadāvalokyase, hṛdayam tvad-aloka-kātaraṁ, dayita bhrāmyati kim karomy aham. Mataji? Ai, O my Lord, dīna on the poor, dayā-ārdra Compassionate. Nātha, O Master. Hey, O mathurā-nātha, the Master of Mathura. Kadā, when. Avalokyase, I shall see you. Hṛdayam, my heart. Tvat, of you. Aloka, without seeing. Kātaram, very much aggrieved. Dayita, O most beloved. Bhrāmyati, becomes overwhelmed. Kim, what? Karomi, shall do. Aham, I. Translation and purport by Srila Prabhupada. O my Lord, O most merciful Master, O Master of Mathura, when shall I see you again? Because of my not seeing you, my agitated heart has become unsteady. O most beloved one, what shall I do now? O my Lord, O most merciful Master, O Master of Mathura, when shall I see you again? Because of my not seeing you, my agitated heart has become unsteady. O most beloved one, what shall I do now? Purport. The uncontaminated devotees who strictly depend on the Vedānta philosophy are divided into 4 sampradāyas, or transcendental parties. Out of the 4 sampradāyas, the Śrī Madhvācārya-sampradāya was accepted by Madhavendra Purī. Thus he took sannyas according to parampara, the disciplic succession. Beginning from Madhvācārya down to the spiritual master of Madhavendra Purī, the acharya named Lakshmipati, there was no realization of devotional service in conjugal love. Śrī Madhavendra Purī introduced the conception of conjugal love for the first time in the Madhvācārya-sampradāya, and this conclusion of the Madhvācārya-sampradāya was revealed by Śrī Caitanya Mahāprabhu when he toured southern India and met the Tattvavadis, who supposedly belonged to the Madhvācārya-sampradāya. When Sri Krishna left Vrindavan and accepted the kingdom of Mathura, Srimati Radharani, out of ecstatic feelings of separation, expressed how Krishna can be loved in separation. Thus, devotional service in separation is central to this verse. Worship in separation is considered by the Gaudiya Madhva Sampradaya to be the topmost level of devotional service. According to this conception, the devotee thinks of himself as very poor and neglected by the Lord. Thus he addresses the Lord as dīna-dayārdra nath, as did Madhavendra Purī. Such an ecstatic feeling is the highest form of devotional service. Because Krishna had gone to Mathura, Srimati Radharani was very much affected, and she expressed herself thus: "My dear Lord, because of your separation, my mind has become overly agitated. Now tell me, what can I do? I am very poor, and you are very merciful. So kindly have compassion upon me, and let me know when I shall see you." Śrī Caitanya Mahāprabhu was always expressing the ecstatic emotions of Srimati Radharani that she exhibited when she saw Uddhav at Vrindavan. Similar feelings experienced by Madhavendra Purī are expressed in this verse. Therefore, Vaishnavas in the Gaudiya Madhva Sampradaya say that the ecstatic feelings experienced by Śrī Caitanya Mahāprabhu during his appearance came from Śrī Madhavendra Purī, through Ishvara Puri. All the devotees in the line of the Gaudiya Madhva Sampradāya accept these principles of devotional service. Namo Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale Śrīmati Bhaktivedanta Swami Niti Namane Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvisesa Sunivari Paschati Deshatarine Om Agyana Timurandasya Gyananjana Salakaya Chakshuram Militam Jena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. We chose this verse today for Akshaya Tritiya because Madhavendra Purī was personally directed by the Supreme Lord Sri Gopal to observe this festival in a most extraordinary manner. Sri Gopal is very tricky, and Prabhupada would often point out the trickiness of the Supreme Lord. So Gopal, he tricked Madhavendra Purī in many ways during this pastime. Akshaya Tritiya, Akshaya means never ending, like we have the word Nitya. It's never decreased. It's going on eternally. So there are particular eternal pastimes of the Lord that he enjoys on this particular day in different forms. In the Skanda Purana, which is the largest of all of the 18 major Puranas, there are 88,100 slokas. Within that Purana, there's one sloka about Akshaya Tritiya. And that is when Sri Jagannath Purushottam Dev is instructing Indradumna Maharaj how he should be worshipped at the time of his appearance and onwards. Because every month, starting with Falgun, there's a special yatra or festival that Sri Jagannath enjoys. And in this month of Vaishak, Sri Jagannath tells Indradumna Maharaj, Vaishakasya site pakshe tritiya akshaya sanjitam tatra mam lepayed gandha lepanayar ati shobhanam. So he's instructing Indradumna Maharaj that on this particular date of Akshaya Tritiya, you should take fragrant sandalwood oil and smear it on my entire body. So Indradumna Maharaj began this at the installation of Jagannath Dev. And now, it's been going on since that time. What they do is they take the Utsav Vigraha, Madan Mohan, they put him on a palanquin, and they bring him to a beautiful lake called Narendra Sarovara. Now, because the Chandan pastimes are going on at this Sarovara, the other name is Chandan Pukur. Just like we have Prabhupada Pukur in Mayapur, Pukur means a pond or a lake. So Madan Mohan, along with Govindaji, Balaram, they all come there, and they're decorated with this Chandan. Śrī Caitanya Mahāprabhu, he had beautiful pastimes there. We'll hear after the understanding of Akshaya Tritiya. Because the original pastimes take place right here in Vrindavan. It's summertime. I'm sure we all experienced last night the heat of the summer. And tapasya is just built into Vrindavan. We can't help but perform tapasya just by living here. So during this summer season, actually the Brijbasis, they used to dread just hearing the word summer. It would be so hot. But Sri Krishna with his friends, they would enjoy summer because they would have special sporting pastimes. And when Śrī Caitanya Mahāprabhu was here, he manifested those pastimes along with his eternal associates who came with him from Goloka Vrindavan. And in a very rare instance, he also allowed himself to be worshipped as Sri Krishna, the Lord of Goloka. And he engaged in pastimes like that with his devotees. So we have the original pastimes in Krishna Loka, Goloka Vrindavan, and then we have a series of other pastimes that took place. One of them was in Satya Yuga. We know from the 7th canto of Śrīmad Bhagavatam that Hiranyakashipu, he tortured and tried to kill his little son Prahlad. Hiranyakashipu's brother Hiranyaksha had been killed by Varahadev, and therefore he hated Vishnu. And when Prahlad Maharaj became a devotee of Vishnu, he tried to kill his own son. But the Lord constantly protected him. Prahlad had no difficulties. Finally, as a last resort, there's a very special place. Now it's in Andhra. It's just near the ocean side. There's a city called Visakhapatnam. You go inland a little way, beautiful hills and mountains. At that place, there's a temple called Singhachalam. Singha means lion and Chalam means mountain. So this murti is a double murti. Hiranyakashipu, he had decided the only way to kill him, he told his servants, is you throw Prahlad into the ocean and you take a mountain peak and you throw that on top of Prahlad. That'll do it. So the servants took Prahlad, they threw him into the ocean, and what Vishnu did was he jumped over the mountain, picked up Prahlad, and brought him back to that place and saved him. We've seen the picture in the Śrīmad Bhagavatam of that Leela. So when Prahlad was saved and there with Vishnu, Prahlad requested the Lord to show his form. The Lord manifests a very special form that's not mentioned in the Śrīmad Bhagavatam or other Puranas, but it's mentioned in what's called the Stala Puranas of this place called Singhachalam. And that is, he showed Prahlad Maharaj a 2.5-foot murti, threefold bending form like Krishna, with 2 hands. His face is that of Varahadev, because Varahadev had killed Hiranyaksha. And he has a tail like a lion, Nrsimhadev. So Prahlad Maharaj was able to see this double incarnation in this form of Sri Krishna. Now Prahlad Maharaj, after Hiranyakashipu was killed, he made a beautiful temple there in Satya Yuga for Singhachalam Sri Varaha Nrsimha Swami, or Appan. So, but as time wears away everything, at the end of Satya Yuga, after thousands and thousands of years, the temple was neglected. Then we have, from Brahma, his son Atri, from Atri's son Soma, who begins the lunar dynasty. Soma became very proud because he was in charge of the universe. And he stole the wife of Brihaspati. And he had in the wife, Tara, a son named Buddha. And Buddha had a son named Pururava. Pururava was extremely powerful and extremely handsome. And Urvasi, the heavenly society girl, she fell in love with him, and they married. They would go in their aerial chariot, enjoying in the different places here in Bharatvarsha. And one day, they were crossing over these mountains where the deity had been covered after thousands of years with earth. And he was mystically drawn to this place. He stopped his chariot and he started to uncover the place and found the murti of Varaha Nrsimhadev. Then a voice came and told him that you should keep me covered with chandan throughout the year. That is my nitya rupa. But on one day of Akshaya Tritiya, you should break open this covering so that everyone can have darshan of me as Varaha Nrsimhadev and attain the perfection of life. So Pururava at that time made a magnificent temple, and that temple is still there. And we went there once, not only many hundreds of thousands of devotees go there, but Caitanya Mahāprabhu visited there. Because Caitanya Mahāprabhu visited, then Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati visited to put the footprints of Caitanya Mahāprabhu. And then Srila Prabhupada visited with his disciples. The pujaris there are very learned because they have special training from childhood how to take care of this murti, because it's a sakshat Swayam murti. So we asked the pujari, why is he covered in chandan all the time throughout the year? And the pujari explained that Nrsimhadev is so angry at Hiranyakashipu that this chandan keeps him cool. And only one day in the year, the devotees come by the thousands. They walk up 1,000 steps to take darshan of Varaha Nrsimhadev. So that's one pastime of the Lord on Akshaya Tritiya. Then we have here in this verse spoken by Madhavendra Purī, Srila Prabhupada explains that Madhavendra Purī was the first in our line of disciplic succession to manifest Madhurya Bhav. His Guru Maharaj, Lakshmipati, up to that time, this was not expressed in the Madhvācārya-sampradāya. Madhavendra Purī, he was such an exceptional Vaishnava in ecstatic love. He used to wander as a sannyasi. He would not allow anyone to accompany him because he didn't want to engage in any type of mundane topics. He would never even beg, bhikshu. For him, if Krishna wanted to send him something to eat, that's what he would eat. He would never ask for anything. So he was wandering, and he came here to Vrindavan. And when he reached Vrindavan, he was so mad in ecstasy. Sometimes he would stand, sometimes he would fall on the ground. Sometimes he didn't know where was the proper place to be and not to be. He would fall into ecstasy. And when he went to Govardhan, he did the Govardhan Parikrama and then took his bath at Govindakund. By that time it was evening. So he decided to sit under a tree and chant Hare Krishna. Now, it just so happened that a young boy came there. That was not an ordinary young boy. That was Sri Krishna himself, because he had been watching Madhavendra Purī for a very long time. And he was just waiting for when Madhavendra Purī would reach Vrindavan. So this young, beautiful boy came with a pot of milk to Madhavendra Purī. And he asked Madhavendra Purī, Baba, what are you doing? Why aren't you begging for food? What type of meditation are you doing? So Madhavendra Purī, he was so astounded by the beauty of this young boy. He said, who are you? Where do you live? How did you know that I didn't take anything to eat? So Krishna said, well, the young ladies here, they were coming to draw water and they saw you and they told me to give this pot of milk to you. So I have to go milk the cows now, it's evening time, but you drink this milk and I'll come back and get the pot later. And then he disappeared in a mystical way. Madhavendra Purī couldn't understand how he had appeared, how he had disappeared. So Madhavendra Purī, in great ecstasy, he drank that milk, he washed the pot, but the little boy never came back. He chanted all night. Just before sunrise, his external activities were not manifest anymore. At that time, the little boy came and took him by the hand and brought him to the jungle. And he explained to Madhavendra Purī that my name is Gopal, and I am the Lord here. I am Govardhanadari. And when Krishna left the planet, he had Pradumna, he had Aniruddha, and Aniruddha had Vajranava Maharaj. So Krishna had left the planet, And Vajranava Maharaj, he was appointed to be king of this whole Braj area by Sandilya Rishi. Sandilya Rishi appointed Parikshit Maharaj for the world as emperor, and especially just for Vraj, he appointed Vajranava Maharaj. So Vajranava Maharaj, you can still see today the original deities, because he was instructed by Sandilya Rishi to erect temples, to install deities, to make wells, to make sarovaras, wherever Sri Krishna had his pastimes. Because when Krishna left, he took all the Brijbasis with him. So there was no one here anymore. There were no inhabitants. Vajranava Maharaj had to bring everyone from outside, and he had to find out before everything disappeared where all the pastimes took place. So at Govardhan, he installed a very large Gopal Murti. So the little boy told Madhavendra Purī that I have been here in this bush for many, many years. Vajranava Maharaj, he installed me, and I was being worshipped here in a temple. But the mlechas came, and out of fear of them, my pujari took me and he hid me in this bush. Now this pastime with Madhavendra Purī took place in the 15th century. The mlechas coming from the west began to enter and invade Bharatvarsha from the 8th century onwards. They started with Sindh, and their maneuvering was like no one had ever seen before in India. Because in India, when there were wars, just like in the Battle of Kurukshetra, everyone followed according to Dhanur Ved, the principles. There were no molestations, there were no murdering of any civilians, there was no entering into the dwelling places, there was no booty. No, it was just between the warriors in a flat area. But when the mlechas came, they first killed all of the men, then they enslaved the women and the children, and they converted everyone into Islam. They desecrated the temples, destroyed the deities, and in that way, they tried to destroy the entire culture of Bharatvarsha. So after Sindh, the mlechas then came to North India. By the 12th century, they were entering here into Braj. So that means it could have been up to 300 years. It's not mentioned anywhere how many years Sri Gopal had been suffering there in the bushes. So the little boy, Gopal, he explained to Madhavendra Purī, I have been here in this bush for so long. I want you to take me out. I want you to install me in a temple, and I want you to recommence my worship. And he told him to call all of the locals with their choppers and get me out of the bush. And all of this was performed by Madhavendra Purī. When he woke up from this dream, he first cried because Krishna had personally come to him and spoken to him, and he couldn't recognize Krishna. But then he started to carry out the orders that Krishna had given him, and in due course of time, the temple was installed, the deity was installed again, the temple was erected by a great king, and all of the villagers, they would come every day. Each village would perform an anukut. Hundreds and hundreds of pots of cooling water tried to cool down the Lord from these years in the bushes. And Madhavendra Purī, he initiated the Brahmins so that they could worship the Lord in the Vaishnav line. He assigned different people to do different duties. And this went on for 2 full years. Then again one night, Madhavendra Purī had another dream. And Gopal came to him. And he said, my body has still not cooled down. I want you to go to Jagannath Puri. You are the only one who can do it. By this time, Madhavendra Purī was an old man. Jagannath Puri and Mathura, they're 2,000 kilometers away. And the only way to get there was to walk. He said, I want you to bring me chandan and smear it over my body. It's the only thing that will cool me. And I know that you're the only person who can do it. So immediately, when Madhavendra Purī woke up, he assigned, there were two sannyasis from Bengal, he assigned them to take over the worship, and he gave different duties to everyone. On foot, he started to walk east. He walked and walked and walked all the way to Shantipura. There he met Advaitacharya. Advaitacharya begged Diksha from him. He gave Diksha to Advaitacharya, and from there he walked south. Between Calcutta and Puri, it's about 500 kilometers. So when he was walking from Bengal, entering into Orissa, about 250 kilometers away from Puri is a small place called Remuna. Now Remuna is actually Gupta Vrindavan. It's where Gopinath lives. He lives with Madan Mohan and Govindaji, and they have beautiful worship there. So Madhavendra Purī, he stopped there because he was very interested to know what type of worship they were doing there. And he had heard that they offer a very special kheer to the Lord. So he asked the pujari, how do you make this kheer? Now, for those who don't know how to make this kheer, it's called Amrita Keli. It has 4 ingredients. It has boiled down condensed milk. It has cream. It has sugar, some type of sweetener, and some raisins. And they make this every day, and at night they offer 12 pots of this to Gopinath. So Madhavendra Purī, because of his devotion to Gopal, he was thinking, if I could just get to taste this, then I could figure out how to make this for Gopal. And then he realized, Prabhupada said he was thinking, oh, I'm so stupid. I've committed such a great offense. I was thinking how to taste this kheer even before it was offered. It's a great offense. And then Prabhupada gives a warning to all of us. Because we're on the Kanishta Adhikari platform. He says, this is why when you take the bhog into the deities, there has to be a cover on it. Because Kanishta Adhikaris, they will look at that bhoga and they will think, oh, I want to taste that. Then Prabhupada, he told a secret that all of us should know. He said sometimes the pujaris, even before they offer, they take things off of the plate that they want to eat and hide it. We used to have that experience here in Vrindavan, just to let you know how much the standard has improved. The pujaris, the exalted Mataji, it was a previous Mataji who used to take care of the Mahaprasadam. She used to call them pujari rats because they would make the offering. They wouldn't take anything off the plate. But before they went off of the altar, they would hide the prasadam they wanted someplace. So we have to be very careful and take the example of Madhavendra Purī, because even in thought, when he was considering, I want to taste this, he condemned himself. He considered himself a great offender. And he immediately left the temple without even waiting for the prasadam. He went to hide somewhere. He went into the marketplace, he was sitting under a tree, and all night long he chanted. The pujari went to sleep. Now this pujari was not an ordinary pujari. He was actually on the same level as Madhavendra Purī, because that night, Gopinath told him in a dream, he said, look, I have hidden one pot of kheer. You didn't notice. I have it behind my cloth. I want you to take this pot of kheer, and under the tree, a tree in the marketplace, you will find Madhavendra Purī. I have stolen this kheer for Madhavendra Purī, and I want you to deliver it to him. So the pujari woke up. He remembered the dream completely. He took his bath. He went into the deity room. He saw the pot there hidden behind the cloth of Gopinath. He picked it up, washed the area, locked the door again, ran to the marketplace and started shouting, "Oh, Madhavendra Purī, whoever you are, Gopinath, he's stolen this kheer for you. Come and take it." So Madhavendra Purī, he got this pot of kheer that Gopinath had stolen. Now, we can't understand the activities of the Supreme Lord. He steals, he cheats, he lies, he runs away from the battlefield. When he does these things, he's worshipped and glorified. When we do these things, we're beaten with shoes. This is what Prabhupada says. So, Krishna, yes, he was a thief. And then Prabhupada went on to describe all the different trickeries that Krishna committed. And don't think it just happened earlier. It's still going on. Prabhupada gave the example of Radha London Ishwara. There was a Hindu society in London. Prabhupada wanted to establish a temple there. And this Hindu society, for their temple, they had ordered a beautiful white marble set of Radha Krishna deities. But when the deities arrived, little finger of Radharani was slightly chipped. So they had to follow all the Hindu principles. Mr. Dayal, who was in charge of the Hindu society, he decided, well, we can't worship these deities, we might as well give them to Swamiji, Prabhupada. So they called up the devotees and they said, we have some Radha Krishna deities for you. Prabhupada jumped in the car with Tamal Krishna, Mukunda, and maybe Shamsundar. Shamsundar, yes. They all went directly to Mr. Dayal's house. And when they entered, immediately Mr. Dayal wanted to show Prabhupada the deities. Prabhupada said, no. First he wanted to talk to Mr. Dayal, find out who he is, where he's from in India, what this ISKCON society is. He had a very long conversation with Mr. Dayal. And Mr. Dayal kept saying, well, now I want to give you the deities. So Prabhupada, he told Shamsundar, he said, Shamsundar, you go over and you see how heavy Radharani is. He told Tamal Krishna that. Tamal Krishna picked her up. He said, not very heavy, Prabhupada. And then he said, Shamsundar, you pick up Krishna and see how heavy Krishna is. No, Prabhupada, he's not very heavy. He said, all right, Mr. Dayal, we'll take them immediately. Mr. said, no, we have to fix the deities first before we give them to you. He said, no, we're ready now. We have the car. You don't have to worry. We have expert artists. We can fix the deities. Out the door. They jump in the car, and the devotees are just stunned. And Tamal Krishna says to Prabhupada, you just kidnapped Krishna. And Prabhupada says, don't tell anyone. Keep this a secret. So don't think that Krishna only has his pastime sometime in the past. It's still going on. We're still in the same sampradāya, and that love is still coming through like a strong current from Srila Prabhupada to his disciples. Prabhupada gave other examples how Krishna tricked Yashoda. He kept making the rope 2 inches too small. How all of the tricks he played in Mahabharata at the Battle of Kurukshetra. So Krishna is a very tricky person, and we worship him for that trickiness. So now, Madhavendra Purī, he had the pot, he took the kheer, he broke that pot up into little pieces, and every day he took a little piece of that pot and ate it. He had the Mahaprasadam of Gopinath. He walked on he left immediately. He was afraid that by morning time, all the people will have heard that Gopinath stole this kheer for him, and his reputation, he would become very famous. So he immediately started walking to Jagannath Puri. But for a devotee, his reputation arrives before he does. By the time he got to Jagannath Puri, all the Sevites in Jagannath Puri temple had heard about Madhavendra Purī. So when he reached there, they were all honoring him. So Madhavendra Purī took advantage of this. although he never asked for anything, he was there on a mission. So he told the Sevites that he told them all about Gopal, how Gopal had appeared. Then he told the Sevites, I have to bring back this sandalwood for Gopal. So the Sevites, at that time, and even now these wars are going on, the red sanders, anyone who's in the south has heard about them. The poor tribal people, they'll cut down a sandalwood tree, they'll get 10,000 rupees for it. But the mafia, they'll be able to get 40 lakhs for that one tree because of the sale of sandalwood, how expensive sandalwood is now. So even in those days, at the 15th century, sandalwood and camphor was controlled by the government officers. You couldn't even take sandalwood out of Jagannath Puri. It was all for Lord Jagannath. But the Sevites, they knew government officers, they got all the papers so that Madhavendra Puri could take a whole mun. A mun is 40 kilos. A whole mun. And the king, he gave 2 servants, a Brahmin and a servant to carry, and he gave 20 tolas, I think that's 200 grams, of the finest karpur to mix with the chandan. So they sent Madhavendra Puri on his way, walking, and very dangerous. There are so many dacoits, there's so many Muslim guards on the highway, but Madhavendra Puri had the papers from the king, so they let him pass. Finally, after 250 kilometers, again he reached Remuna, and they spent the night there. Now for the second time? Third time, Gopal comes to Madhavendra Puri in dream. He said, I'm very pleased with your service, because Gopal could understand how difficult it was going to be to get all the way back to Vrindavan. He said, I and Gopinath are non-different. I want you to take this chandan and smear it on Gopinath from Akshay Tritiya, Sahara's time of the year. And he'll be cooled, and because he and I are non-different, I will also be cooled. So when Madhavendra Puri woke up that morning, he called the Sevites of Gopinath. He told them the dream, and they were all ecstatic. So Madhavendra Puri, he had money for traveling. He said, I give these 2 people, and I want 2 more people hired, and I want them to make the chandan every day for Gopinath. So beginning on Akshay Tritiya today, up until the 8th day of the waning moon of the next month, which is Jest, this goes on for 21 days. Now, in Singachalam, I forgot to mention that from Akshay Tritiya, which is the 3rd day of the month, 11 days after is Nrsimhadev's appearance day, right? So that pastime all takes place there in Singachalam. Now, this 21-day period in Remuna, it's very much enjoyed. They don't put the full chandan on every single day. At the hot time of the afternoon, they put it on the chest of Gopinath and all the deities. But on Akshay Tritiya, they cover his entire body just as we do here. So when Madhavendra Puri was convinced by Gopal that he had fulfilled his mission, at the end of summer he returned to Jagannath Puri and spent Chaturmas there, the 4 months. And then he came back to Ramuna and stayed there. He did not return here to Govardhan. And this sloka is the sloka of intense separation. This sloka was originally spoken by Srimati Radharani. Madhavendra Puri, understanding the mood of separation of Srimati Radharani, he expressed this sloka. This sloka contains, only 3 people can understand this sloka. Srimati Radharani, Madhavendra Puri, and Śrī Caitanya Mahāprabhu, who is in the mood of Srimati Radharani. Anyone else who says they understand this sloka, they're lying. So Madhavendra Purī, in that mood of separation, there in Gupta Vrindavan, just near Jagannath Puri, where Jagannath was living regally as a king, in this mood, in such separation from Sri Krishna, both Jagannath and Gopal here, he left this world. And this entire story was told by Śrī Caitanya Mahāprabhu, told to Śrī Caitanya Mahāprabhu by his spiritual master, Ishvara Puri. So when Śrī Caitanya Mahāprabhu accepted sannyas, he stayed for a few days with Advaitacharya in Shantipura, and then he also started to walk from that place. When he reached Ramuna, he also wanted to taste the kheer, so they wanted to spend the night there. While he was there, he only had 4 associates with him: Nityananda Prabhu, Mukunda Das, Jagadananda Pandit, and Devananda Pandit. They were the only people who he allowed to travel with him to Jagannath Puri. So because he had heard this story of Ramuna and the Leela there, he told that story for them to hear, especially for Nityananda Prabhu to hear, because he wanted Nityananda Prabhu's opinion about the exalted nature of the love of Madhavendra Puri. So after Chaitanya Mahaprabhu told this story, he fell into ecstasy. But the people were all watching him, so he had to control himself. He waited patiently. The pujaris brought all the 12 pots to Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. He said, no, there are only 5 of us, we'll only take 5 pots, and you take back the rest of the 7 pots. So that night, they enjoyed the kheer of Gopinath, and the next morning, they set out for Jagannath Puri. Now, again, this mood of separation is so intense, because Chaitanya Mahaprabhu left all of his associates in Bengal. He was living now in Odisha, in Jagannath Puri. So the arrangement was made that all the devotees would come, led by Shivananda Sen, every year to spend Chaturmas with Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. So that year, Advaitacharya, everyone came. And Chaitanya Mahaprabhu had his associates in Jagannath Puri. So they were walking. Finally, they reached, and because Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, being the Supreme Lord, he could understand that the devotees were arriving. He called all of his associates in Jagannath Puri, and like 2 oceans, the Jagannath Puri devotees and the Bengali devotees, they all met right at this place of Chandan Pukur, Narendra Sarovara. They were so ecstatic to see each other. Everyone was singing, but no one knew what they were singing. They were dancing, but they didn't know how they were dancing. They were rolling on the ground, but they couldn't figure out which direction they were rolling in. There was so much ecstasy when these 2 groups finally met. And at that time, the Madan Mohan deity came from the Jagannath temple. He was placed in the center of Narendra Sarovara. And there, Śrī Caitanya Mahaprabhu exhibited his eternal Leela with all of his combined devotees. Prabhupada explains that there's a Bengali water sport called Kaya. Any Bengalis have ever heard of that? Kaya. So this water sport, what they do is, the Cowherd boys used to play this also. You make circles by holding hands. And then you start splashing the water and make different sounds. And then you start attacking each other by splashing. So they broke up into different groups. Advaitacharya and Mahaprabhu, they were trying to defeat each other by splashing water in each other's eyes. But nobody could defeat each other because they kept hitting each other. And Nityananda Prabhu, and they all had their Pundarik Vidyanidhi and Swarup Damodar, they were fighting. All of the different devotees, they were having these beautiful water sports fighting together. but nobody could win. Nobody was defeated. Nobody could win. They just went on and on, engaging in these beautiful Braja Leela pastimes together there at Narendra Sarovara. So it's explained that just as the Ganga is sanctified, as the Jamuna is sanctified by the Lord's pastimes, this Narendra Sarovara was then sanctified by these eternal Leelas that Chaitanya Mahaprabhu manifested. And in this very rare instance, he allowed himself to manifest in the role of Sri Krishna, and he was playing with all of his associates just as he played his water sports here in Vrindavan. So this Akshaya Tritiya is extremely special. We can't understand the pastimes even when Madhavendra Purī saw the Lord in his childish form directly. There's a beautiful verse, Atak Shri Krishna Namadi Nabhaved Grayam Indriyai Sevan Mukhe Hi Jivado Swayam Eva Sparatyada. No one can understand Krishna by the blunt senses, but he reveals himself to the devotees, being pleased with them for their transcendental loving service to him. So we have these instances when the Supreme Lord has revealed himself to Indraduna Maharaj, to Prahlad Maharaj, to Madhavendra Purī, and how Śrī Caitanya Mahāprabhu, by his causeless mercy, he came with all of his eternal associates, and this Sevan Moke Hi Jivadho, we can all get this transcendental vision of the Supreme Lord by chanting with our tongue, by taking prasadam. We heard, if you have no other attraction for the Supreme Lord, you can eat your way back to Godhead. But for us, we're trying to take shelter of the holy name, and just as these devotees had the personal darshan of the Supreme Lord in their particular form that they loved and worshipped, if we take shelter of the Supreme Lord and 2 tracks, this is very important because these are the tracks that Madhavendra Purī followed. One is called Svadhyayam, and the other is Vishnu Aradhana. So these 2 tracks, Prabhupada also calls it Bhagavat Vidhi and Pancharataki Vidhi. The 2 must go together. Just like if you have a train, if there's only 1 track, the train can't move. 2 tracks must be there, and that is, we must understand the Shastras very minutely. Prabhupada would use the word scrutinizingly. And the other is worship, not just by study, by svadhyaya. No, we must worship the Supreme Lord. We must celebrate his festivals. And those 2 things together will take us back to Godhead, where we can have personal darshan of the Lord. And that is why on these special days, we have these beautiful decorations. Really, the decorations today, no one is victorious, no one is defeated, because all 3 altars are so beautiful. There's no way to compare the beauty of the 3 altars. And so far as Svadhyaya is concerned, Prabhupada, he told the devotees when he had his concept, the spiritual master plan of how he wanted Vrindavan to be, he wanted a research library here with all of the Puranas, the Vedas, all of the Vedic literatures. So today we have re-established that library, and you're all welcome to execute these 2 principles, Bhagavat Vidhi and Pancharataki Vidhi, and make your life perfect. Hare Krishna. Questions?
Thank you for the class, very nice class. The section at the end. You see, And you know is a care. Is it?
Yes.
Then disciples like you, proper disciples, direct disciples, you have that love towards Prabhupada, naturally. But we have not seen Prabhupada. How to develop such and you will love towards Prabhupada at least.
Did you ever touch a live wire and get a shock? The current comes through. Yes. The current comes through. We had our direct association with Srila Prabhupada. We had our direct association with Srila Prabhupada by his causeless mercy. But that current is coming through his devotees. You're also one of his devotees. So you just have to grab on, and that current will go through you also. And that's why we want you back in the bookshop to distribute books again, now that your eyes are okay. All right?
Thank you.
Could you say something about Madhavendra Purī? He had 2 satellites, and then he hired 2 more. They were paid.
Yes.
We make a very big, a lot of noise about paying people to do devotional service, but it seems here this process has always been going on. Could you say something?
I can only repeat what I read, that because he was given the expenses for getting all the way to Vrindavan, because he didn't have a farthing, Prabhupada said. When he left Vrindavan, he had absolutely nothing. But in order to, because they understood, the government officers, in order to get this all the way to Vrindavan, he was going to have money. So he had that money, so he said, you take it. Take it, and you do this service for Gopal, for Gopinath. So that was what he did with the money. He didn't keep it at all. Yeah, Gargamuni tells a story. When he was bringing 6 vans from Germany to India, and you have to go through Mleccha countries, Turkey, Afghanistan, Pakistan, in order to get to India. So what he did was, he bought whiskey and cigarettes. And whenever they got, because they had 6 vans, you know, how do you get 6 vans through all the, so he would give the people at the borders whiskey and cigarettes, and he just flew right in India. So you have to know how to do these things. You have to be given some transcendental intelligence. You have to come forward, otherwise the mic won't work.
Thank you, Mataji, for today's session. Mataji, just as you said that unsteady and mathurā-nātha should go together.
Yes.
But at the same time, we cannot see Krishna without chanting and hearing. So, which process should we give more importance, and so that we can have perfect darshan, we can get that vision to see Krishna?
Well, Shravanam, Kirtanam, Vishnu, Smaranam, Pada Sevanam, all those 9 processes will give you the same result. But of all of the 9 processes, we start with Shravanam and Kirtanam. And then from that Shravanam, Kirtanam, we go on to Archana, Pada Sevanam, finally Atma Nivedanam. So you start with hearing and chanting, and then by associating with the devotees, you learn how to serve the deities. It's not that serving the deities is the right of everyone. No, you have to go through training. And just as you have to read and study and learn, so in order to serve their lordships, you also have to learn that. So start with your Shravanam and Kirtanam, and by hearing from the devotees and associating with them, you will be able to advance further through the 9 processes up to Atma Nivedanam. Okay?
Thank you, Mataji.
All glories.
Krishna Maharaj, Martin, you please explain the difference between Pancharattika-vidhi and Bhagavad-vidhi. What's the difference between both?
What's the difference between them? Bhagavad Vidhi means to study the Shastras, and Pancharatrika Vidhi, that comes from the Narada Muni. He prepared the principles for Archana, the Pancharatras. In 5 nights, all of the different principles were described. It was a conversation. So this Pancharatrika Vidhi is coming from Narada Muni, and you'll find those descriptions for us in the Hari Bhakti Vilas. For instance, the manner in which Madhavendra Purī worshipped Gopal when he did the Abhishek, when he did the Anukut. That's all from the Pancharatrika Vidhi. What to offer to the Supreme Lord, how to perform the Maha Abhishek, how to put different unguents and pleasant offerings onto the Lord's body. So that's the Pancharatrika Vidhi. And fortunately, we have a head pujari here, Mukunda Datta. He gives seminars for training devotees how to engage in this deity worship. In some other temples, it's just not going on at all, but we have a very high standard here of deity worship. So you can get the best of both here in Vrindavan. You can get the best of everything here in Vrindavan. Okay, all glories to Shri. Oh, one more question. By hearing, that's the most important way. Okay? Hare Krishna.